Welcome to Parkinsons, an athlete's journey. I'm Eric von Frohlich, founder of EVF Fitness and Row House, training with Parkinsons since 2020.
And I'm Todd, Vogt, Paralympic rower and coach, training with Parkinsons since 2017. Together we compare notes on training, recovery, mindset, and what it takes to keep showing up. Let's get to it.
This podcast is not medical advice. Talk to your clinician before changing training, meds, or supplements.
So I've been rowing a fair amount on the water. We had an atmospheric river last week here, and it was pretty intense. Like I moved to Portland in around 2001. Anyways, the way it used to work in the city sewer system wasn't, if there was a large rainstorm, the city sewer system couldn't handle it. And essentially it would overflow and it would just flow, untreated sewage would flow into the river. It's called the combined sewer overflow, a CSO. And Portland used to have these events like, I don't know, something like 12 a year or something like that. And what would happen a lot of times, I would go out for a row on the water and, in a boat or whatever, in single or double. Then I jump in the car, head back home, turn on the NPR, local NPR station, and they would say, combined sewer overflow, don't go in the river, don't fish, don't swim in the river, and if you get splashed, like make sure to clean your face. And I just come from spending like an hour and a half on the river. So
Right.
That happened like fairly regularly. So the city did this construction project called the big pipe, like not the big dig, that's Boston, but the big pipe. They increased the capacity of the sewer system, and it reduced how many CSOs the city of Portland used to have prior to the completion. Like I said, it was like 10 to 50, whatever, depending on the year. Now they have like one or two at most. So, but one of them was last week, and so
wow.
Basically, yeah. And we rode like the day after. So. Yeah,
Did you ever correlate getting sick with before they did this project with being underwater?
That's interesting. Yeah. Cause that leads to a bigger topic in that, as we were talking about. I don't have any genetic, like sort of known genetic, markers for Parkinson's, and I don't have a family history of it. So I suppose it's potentially that there was some environmental exposure that I had.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. And it could be who knows what it could be like. It could be that, just given a couple facts, like I didn't grow up near a golf course or anything like that. I just grew up in like a suburban house. I didn't work for like oil refinery or anything like that. I didn't work like Kevin Kwok. I don't know if you know Kevin Kwok. Another guy.
I don't know Kevin.
This Asian guy who he was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's a long time ago. He's in his mid 60s now, but he lives in Colorado and he's pretty close with Davis Finney, and so he's a big cyclist. Point is, Kevin worked for Dow Chemical back when he was younger. He worked cleaning the chemical vats. So
wow.
Yeah. Point being is there's nothing that I can sort of pinpoint as saying I had this massive exposure or I had like a ton of concussions. So I don't know. Yeah, I suppose it could be getting splashed in the face every day for an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's funny talking about origins. It came up this weekend because we met a guy randomly, and I'll have to tell the backstory on it, but we met a guy and he brought up, paraquat and golf club exposure and golf courses and landscaping and stuff like that, which I had done landscaping for about 5 years when I was a kid, and was pretty exposed to Roundup and paraquat as a result of it. And then I played a lot of golf. I was on a course probably like 3-4 days a week in my 20s. And so I'm trying to pin down where the origin is, because it's a question that everyone wants to know is, when did you get diagnosed and what was the cause?
Yeah.
And obviously it would be easier to point to genetics, but that only accounts for, I think, maybe 10 or 15% of the cases.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So,
yeah. You have a family history as well? Anybody?
No family history, no relatives that have it.
Yeah. And you don't have any genetic markers, I think is what you just said, right?
No. But I had a couple concussions, but we didn't really record them, so we didn't keep track of them that much back when I was a youth.
Yeah. How'd you get those?
Ice skating.
Okay.
Played lacrosse for a bunch of years, and just primarily contact sports.
Yeah.
Would be the most likely. I mean, I was climbing trees and jumping and running and doing all kinds of crazy boy stuff, but we never really kind of pinpointed it. We looked at TBI as a possible. When I was searching for what was going on, I thought it might be concussion related. So I went down that path for a little bit, and then that sent me down the neurology path eventually. I was going to tell you a story. Deb was at a workspace the other day, and she overheard a guy talking about his friend that has Parkinson's, and they were going to go sailing. And so she kind of hears this, the guy set up next to her, and she kind of hears this for the first time. And she decides to leave him a note saying something to the effect of, "My husband has Parkinson's, and I'd be really interested in talking to you about this at some point." And sure enough, the guy calls her back and says he started an inclusive rowing program for
Well, that's
people
cool.
with Parkinson's or disabilities. And so he has a specialized boat that has a seat in it that gives you a lot of back support, so it makes it easier to get comfortable on the boat, and at the same time, kind of keeps you right in the middle of the action. And then it has a special runner to step into the boat with that kind of locks onto the dock, so your balance isn't as much of an issue because obviously sitting down on the deck of the boat would be quite a bit of a challenge for most people with Parkinson's, as well as getting on and off the boat. Deb spoke with him the later that day, and he invited us out to sail with his friend. And so we jumped at the opportunity. It was my first time sailing.
Cool.
And so we went out and had an absolutely fantastic time. It was incredibly relaxing. It was
Nice.
thrilling and exciting, and everything that you can imagine it would be. And it just kind of came out because of the Deb's ability to multitask and overhear this conversation.
Nice. What's it?
Worked out.
What's this guy's name?
His name is Christian, and his friend is JP, which is Jean Paul, and they're both from Europe.
Oh, okay.
Christian's from Switzerland, and JP is from Amsterdam.
Oh,
And they've
cool.
been lifelong friends, and it's been quite exciting to hear their adventures and their support of each other through this inclusive sailing program.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend it. If you come down this way, we'll have to get you in a boat.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah, I've only done a little bit of sailing, so that'd be fun.
For a topic today, I wanted to try to jump into like mindset. The thing that made me want to talk about mindset was my opportunity to jump at this experience to sail. Kind of opened up a whole new window and a whole new community to me. And so it was super thrilling to realize that usually things happen when you say yes to the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure.
It kind of leads itself to the concept of our journey is divinely guided and supported when you are open to it. For as much as Parkinson's gets in the way and kind of gives us an excuse not to do things, it's kind of a blessing because it provides us with opportunities to do things that we never really would have thought of previously.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. Having sort of an open perspective to new possibilities.
You know, every challenge has its silver lining. And so, as challenging as this particular moment is in our life's journey, it's providing opportunities to make new friendships and tap into different communities and kind of appreciate the people who you meet's journey as well, and kind of find the support that you need.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose, we were talking about this before, is that Parkinson's provides you with an opportunity for like emotional, spiritual, personal growth. There's plenty of ways to get spiritual growth and emotional growth. I'm sure that doesn't require getting like,
It's
degenerative,
not a
neurodegenerative
requirement,
disease.
but it's certainly an
Parkinson's
opportunity.
is good as providing you opportunities, at least for growth. If you can sort of appreciate that and get beyond the day-to-day struggles.
Right. But, for the most part, you can attract the positive experiences that you want in life despite Parkinson's.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
Yeah.
framing your day with the right mindset is super crucial. And I kind of find that the days that I struggle the most are the days that I don't recommit to setting a positive mindset and recognizing how much support I have and how much is kind of coming together to make life easier and make it more successful.
Yeah, and I'm thinking it's hard sometimes to look beyond sort of the day-to-day struggle at times. When you're like struggling to get through your workout or whatever, it's hard to sort of see the beyond that. So it's easy to get mad. It's easy to get stuck in the negativity.
Previous to Parkinson's, we had that same problem though. You had to set a frame of mind that was trusting in your training program or trusting in your training or your recovery program, and you always had to kind of be upbeat about it and focused on it and try to find the best out of the time that you were committing to training as an athlete for whatever goal it was you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just happen to have this thing that makes it a little bit harder to do.
Absolutely. I'm just sort of letting this idea roll around in my head here. Maybe Parkinson's, because of its challenges, makes it harder to just sort of, I don't know, maybe it keeps you in the present moment as well. So
Right, which is a blessing as well.
yeah.
Because I kind of feel like the anxiety that you get is usually not with the situation you're dealing with, whether it's, washing dishes or getting dressed or just kind of working your way through your regular life. Those challenges are challenging, for lack of a better word, but you'll be stronger as a result of going through them, and as a result, you'll be able to deal with tomorrow when it gets here. I think it's people freak out because they only imagine it getting worse, and consequently, if it's challenging now, then how are you going to possibly deal with it when it's
Yeah.
worse? So, but that kind of takes you out of the present state and puts you in the future state, and that's where your anxiety gets created, is when you're trying to live life in a different time frame than now.
100%. I was reading somebody's book about describing suffering. Yeah, it's just funny. We make it sound like, going back to our previous episode, we're making it sound like, oh yeah, we got Parkinson's and now we get to sort of find enlightenment or whatever. So
Right.
yeah, without Parkinson's, you can get more easily wrapped up in sort of the day-to-day rhythm of life, right? You can just kind of go to your job, do what you got to do in your daily errands, and it's really easy to not be in the present moment, because you can think like this. I fall nostalgically into the past, like, oh, 2 years ago I used to be capable of doing this.
Right.
You can be like overly nostalgic about the past, and then you could be sort of fearful for what may happen in the future. And neither of
Right.
those keeps you in the present moment.
Where you can only really lock into being grateful for
Yeah,
being here and for all the things that do work and for all the relationships that you have.
yeah,
Gratitude has got to be greater than suffering.
yeah. We have one of these aura frames on our above our mantle, one of these digital little photo albums, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's good. I love it. It's cool. Like when Heather and I are just watching TV at night, it changes like every minute. Whenever it switches, I just kind of glance over and see what it switched to. Like a video will come up of, say, me rowing from, say, 4 years ago. And I'll know exactly where that is. I'll be like, and I can say like, oh, look at how good I'm rowing at that point. So it's real easy to be, yeah, like I said, overly nostalgic. Like, cause I'll see a video of myself on the water, say it's 4 years ago, and think to myself like, wow, my technique looked good at that point. And then I find a more recent video and say, okay, I can see how my disease has impacted my rowing in a negative way, just because I can't move my body the same way as I did then before. It's easy for me to get stuck into like the thought process of, oh man, I'm thinking to myself, I used to be able to do X, but I can no longer do X now. So what I've tried to do is to be okay with what I'm capable of doing now. And sometimes that's hard to do, like whether it's within, specifically in this context, like with rowing. So I just try to be happy, like when I'm out on the water, I always say to myself at some point during a practice on the water, like, this is awesome. Even if it's hard, I still say to myself, like, I'm enjoying this and this is fun. Like I'll see bald eagles go by, or like the boat is moving pretty well, or I feel pretty good. So
Yeah, you're still on the water.
exactly. Any day that I get to be on the water is like a good day, basically. So I've been trying to do a lot recently, the last like 6 months, whatever, or most of this year, like because my symptoms have started to accelerate a little bit this year, I've noticed.
Uh-huh.
And so because of that, it's sort of I've been thinking to myself, like, well, any day I get to be on the water is a good day still, whether it's,
Well, symptoms or no symptoms, your 80-year-old self would trade places with you today at
for
any
sure.
given moment.
Exactly. Todd in 5 years from now, in 2031 or whatever, is going to probably say, oh man, I wish I could do what I can do now. Right. At
Yeah.
that point. So
Oh, I wish I appreciated it more.
yeah, exactly. That's the key. Yeah, you hit it right there.
I think pretty much this is a struggle that every athlete goes through at some point in his life. Is you hit your peak, and
Yeah.
from then on you're struggling and fighting to hold on to it as long as you can.
Yes.
But unfortunately, time has a different meaning to you as an athlete, maybe, than you do as an average person, because you don't feel like that one thing that you were awesome at is
For
is
sure.
behind you at this point, and it's never coming back.
Yeah. I think I mentioned Salt on Lake Casitas. Remember the guy he mentions, Tiff Wood, his sort of main rival? I
Yeah.
think I mentioned Tiff lives in Portland, actually. So when I moved to Portland in the winter of 2000, 2001, I didn't realize this, but he was rowing at the same club I joined, the Portland Boat Club. I went to this women's Christmas party for the club, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Tiff is in the kitchen." And I was like, "Wait. You mean Tiff Wood, the Tiff Wood?" So I went into the kitchen and I introduced myself and, like, I guess you would say fanboyed, and it was kind of awkward. And then I started rowing with him a whole bunch. And, for our first like 2 years, every time I rowed them, I'm like, holy cow, I'm rowing with Tiff Wood. This is wild. So I think I mentioned he used to always do the indoor rowing race here in town. And so at
Uh-huh.
this point out, okay, so I was whatever, like late 20s, early 30s. I had this sort of a thought process about it with seeing Tiff. So he was probably like his mid 50s at that point. So he's still doing the indoor race, but he's going like, I don't know, like close to 7 minutes, not necessarily like screaming fast for an elite level rower,
Right.
He's getting beat by a lot of guys who, or if Tip was in his prime, he would absolutely obliterate those guys. So, but I really
Yeah.
appreciated Tiff. Like, I became good friends with him. I got to know Tiff really well. And he said the same thing, basically. His ego was not at stake. Like, he just loved training. He loves like training, and he loved being on the water, and he loved racing as well. And he didn't care, like, he didn't have to win everything. He did win a lot, don't get me wrong, but
Right.
he was okay getting beat with guys who at one time he would have crushed back in, 30 years ago, whatever. So I think he just enjoyed the process of the training process, like the sport itself and the racing environment. So
Well,
yeah,
I get it a lot in jiu-jitsu. If you're not willing to tap out and take the loss, you're very, very likely to end up getting hurt.
yeah,
In
yeah,
which case, you end up with a lot of downtime to reflect on that stupid decision on why you just didn't tap out and move on to the next sparring match.
yeah. Your ego gets in the way, I'm sure.
Right, but there's definitely something to be said for that. I guess it's the better mentally prepared athletes that are able to do that. Your losses you forget very quickly, and you move on from them, and start training for your next event and your next race, or in this case with Parkinson's for another day.
When you're like training and preparing for an event or a competition, especially, you as the person who's training for it puts probably more emphasis on like the result, like as far as the outcome. You think it might mean a big deal, and you think that other people are going to have a certain impression of you based off your results, right?
Right.
But really, like, nobody really cares, like, as much as you do personally about the result,
That's what, you use the excuse that someone cares as motivation to train harder and to
Yeah.
train longer and to train more.
Yeah.
Lots of time. Competition isn't the healthiest form of training or motivation for training. Whereas if you can just optimize your best and use that as your barometer, you end up in a much healthier place.
Yeah, for sure. For example, like let's use rowing. Nobody is going to care whether I went 6:19 versus 6:22. You know what I mean? It's not,
Right.
in my head, that's a huge difference,
Yeah.
but nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to be like, man, that guy Todd, I just don't want to be friends with him. He's weird and he doesn't row very well. Like, end up attaching too much self-worth to these sort of.
Without question. I mean, you see it every day in the gym, right? The amount of people that are focused on the mirrors is remarkable to me, because I've always found that the only people that really benefit from the mirrors are the people that are looking at themselves. They're not looking at anyone else in the gym.
One of my favorite podcasts is, I think it's called The Science of Coaching. So it's these two track and field coaches. But one guy lives in Portland, actually. He used to coach at Nike. It's like Steve, Magnus, and Marcus something. Their podcast is great. I listen to it all the time. A lot of it is about track and field, but a lot of it is about mindset. It was this morning I saw one of their posts on Instagram. It was talking about process goals versus outcome goals,
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying people who focus more on the process and process goals are generally much more successful and have a long-term career than people who focus purely on outcome. Being competitive and striving for excellence, I guess you would say, is a good thing, especially if you can focus on the process rather than purely the outcome, So
Yeah, definitely. It's I'm much more process driven in my day-to-day activities that I stack to minimize the effects of Parkinson's.
absolutely. Like, get some movement, whatever that is, whatever you need to focus on, whether it's aerobic activity, strength training, flexibility.
Yep, stack in some nutrition, stack in some recovery.
Exactly. Get a
and you
nap
just
in.
kinda-
Because I had to take my dog to the vet this morning. He like tweaked his foot, so he had to get some radiographs. So, but the point is, I had to get up earlier than I wanted to. So, nap. That's my priority this afternoon.
How's the dog doing?
Well, he's good. He's fine, actually. He was like limping a little bit last week. He was like kind of holding up his back right paw. And so we weren't sure.
What kind of dog?
He's a red lab, which is like a variation of a yellow lab, but he lives like sort of golden retriever color, but he's a lab. So
Cool.
he's like 4.5. So he's pretty nuts, you know. So he's great. He's an awesome dog. Hank is an awesome dog.
Does
So
he have identity complex of whether he's a lab or a retriever?
no, he knows his
He's all
favorite thing in
lab.
the world is the chuck ball and like retrieve. He's really good. When you play ball with him, he's like a maniac obsessed. He'd play until his paws fell off, but he brings it right back to you. So
It's great. I have a lab that doesn't really retrieve. He kind of gets it and he brings it like 2/3 of the way back and
yeah,
then drops
exactly.
it.
He's
It's
like really smart when like he'll bring it to you, say 2/3 of the way, and you're like, Hank, here, and he'll grab it and bring it and drop it right at my feet. I think he's figured out that like the closer he brings it to me, the more that I get to throw it for him. So I had to take him in, and it's always fine. We got the result back. His ACL is intact. We were worried about that. His bone. They think he just like twisted his ankles.
Well, the beauty of the dog is they get you out and keep you active, and
Yeah,
it's a daily reminder that you should be happy regardless of the circumstance, because
yeah,
there's not a moment that my lab isn't bounding for joy, whether he thinks he's going for a walk or he thinks he's going to get a snack,
yeah,
or I may even pet him on the head.
yeah.
He's always looking for like the best of every situation.
Dogs are good in that regard. They're good in that they live truly in the moment, you know. So
Yeah, I'm looking at mine napping in the other room, and
nice.
he's enjoying that nap as much as you're going to enjoy yours later.
Yeah, I got a nice workout, and I went and did a bunch of cardio, did a little lifting, do some contract work, and then yeah, take a nap.
My morning's been filled with a phone call from the cardiologist to review next steps on my AFib
Oh
and
yeah,
my ejection fracture, and so I have a scheduled cardiogram. So I have to kind of dive down that world, and I think we're doing that hopefully in the next week or two.
all right. Good luck with that. Hopefully,
Looking forward to kind of getting some of this hard stuff behind me so I can
yeah.
start training again with a
I know
little more
because
purpose.
you like as soon as you start working out with AFib, like you're saying, as soon as you start going moderately hard, whatever, your heart just like your heart rate will kick up super high, right?
Yeah, which makes it a little challenging to get in your zone 2 training. It's a bit of a process to go through to check all the boxes and to make sure that you're going through this methodically and trying to stay positive and not get too sucked up in the could have or would have or should have or what could happen if this doesn't work out as well as you'd like.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
but
Good luck
the
with that.
thank you. I'll keep you guys posted. Uh, what else you got on mindset? How you doing today?
Let's see. So I feel pretty good, but let's see. I feel as though I'm a little bit in limbo. What I mean by that is like sort of existentially. So why do I feel that? Well, I've been looking for a job, like a real job, right? And
Right.
it's hard. Like for the last 15 years since 2009, I've been either a full-time rowing coach or a full-time athlete rower. So before I was coaching rowing, I have a master's degree in biochemistry and I worked in academia for a while. But that was a long time ago. So like if I wanted to coach rowing, I could probably get a coaching job pretty easily. However, if I wanted to go back to the collegiate coaching route, which is where all the real jobs are, I'd probably have to start at NCAA Division I program as an assistant, which would mean that job would be a grind. I mean, I've done that before. That's like
Right.
you're recruiting a ton, you're working a ton outside a lot, and you don't get paid a ton. That's
Right.
not a job. That's not a job for somebody who's 51 years old who has got Parkinson's. You know, that's a job for Todd when I was 35. That's what I was
Right.
doing when I was 35,
Yeah.
pre-Parkinson's. So that's kind of a bummer. So this is one of the bummers about Parkinson's, I guess, that I think sometimes about is that it essentially took my career away from me in some regard, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So now I'm trying to figure out what to do with myself, like career wise. Yeah, I'm still working out pretty hard and training pretty regularly, but the reality is I've sort of come to terms with the fact that like I don't feel good enough to really honestly give that a shot. Like because my symptoms have advanced a little bit in the last year, I feel like I'm rowing much differently. Like I'm not the same guy I was 2 years ago.
How much of that is just refocusing on your training and optimizing everything you could optimize? I mean, is it beyond possible or is it
I think it's
just really
honestly,
very
in all
difficult?
honesty, I think it is beyond possible. Like I think my disease has progressed such that it's really negatively impacted my technique. Like
Uh-huh.
it's becoming harder and harder to row well on the water. It's a lot harder to feather and square with my left hand. So that really kind of like messed with my technique. It's harder to sort of just relax my left arm really easily. Like it does all
Yeah.
crazy motion. So now I've noticed like I'm getting a little bit of tremor and dyskinesia in my left foot. So my like left foot is like, so I'm like messing up the balance. These are all subtle things that most people probably wouldn't perceive, but
Right. But make a huge difference in performance on a boat.
100%. So
Maybe you need to recruit Tim as your training partner.
that wouldn't be a terrible idea. I mean, Tim's a nice guy. That'd be fun too, and he would
Right.
only destroy me every day, so
Yeah, but he can make up for if he's your partner on in the boat.
yeah,
He can make
exactly.
up for some distance.
I've been, oh man. All right. I'll try to bring some humor to this. So I've been applying for all these jobs. Like I was like, for a while there, I was like really interested in trying to get a pharmaceutical sales job as a pharmaceutical sales rep. They had this project with Eli Lilly over the summer. I was working with them and I have the science background. Most pharmaceutical companies, sales reps have previous pharmaceutical sales rep experience. The point is like, that seems like it's going to be hard to crack into.
They have a tendency to be rather attractive looking also.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I found this like sales job with a Fortune 500 company, but it wasn't necessarily like a product I was super enthusiastic about. So I was like talking to the guy and he was like typing it up. And I'm like, okay, maybe I could be a sales rep for this company. And I finally wrapped my brain around it. I applied last week. I talked to the guy and I'm like, okay, this could be good. If nothing else, like give me health insurance. Like I have health insurance through Heather, but with both of us on her policy, it's pretty expensive. So I was like, okay, give me a halfway decent salary, give me health insurance. And I was like, I could sell these products. I can get behind this, whatever. And I was like, well, after a year or two, maybe I could parlay this into something else. And here's the crazy part: the job requirements on like the application were like, was it like high school diploma or GED and like a year of sales experience? It was like something.
Right. About as low as you can
Yeah.
start with.
So I'm like, okay, great. And I had a reference from this guy. I applied and I'm like, all right, I'm going to get an interview talking to this guy. I was like enthusiastic about it. And then of course I didn't even get an interview. I was like,
Oh
God damn
wow.
it.
Overqualified?
I lowered my personal expectations like way down here. I didn't even get a goddamn interview. Excuse my language. So
Yeah, it's a challenge. I mean, that's one of the first things people seem to ask after they find out how long you've been diagnosed or what year you got diagnosed and what caused your Parkinson's. The third question is always, so are you working still?
yeah,
And the majority, I never kept a poll of, what it seems like, but it's probably close to 75% are not
I
working.
know exactly. Yeah, I'm
And
in
the
this.
25 that are working are in companies that they set up and founded and they still have legacy in.
Yeah, I'm connected to the Brian Grant Foundation. We have a young onset Parkinson meetup. It's like the first.
Mhm.
It's like the first Monday of the month. We meet at a local bar. But yeah, speaking to your point, that's one of the questions that's interesting. And clearly, like within the young onset group, a lot of that's like the really big challenge is a lot of people who are first diagnosed are like their thought process is like, what does this mean for my career? Or there's a lot of people within the young onset group who are now like in their early 50s. And yeah, a lot of them are either like on disability or like early retirement, things like that. So anyways, that's like on my mind too a little bit. So yeah, so
Right. So,
I'm like battling my mindset if you're a little bit. So
yeah, I'm kind of struggling with that same concept. And maybe this becomes a topic that we'll have to explore in depth. But it seems as if the will and the drive and the motivation are in place to figure this out, it's probably is going to require an entrepreneurial outlet
yeah,
versus anything else. You're just going to have to start something and build it and create a brand or a service that, supersedes your symptoms of Parkinson's
yeah,
or at least offsets them.
yeah, that's a good point. We're talking about nostalgic. It's every athlete, I suppose, elite athlete, whatever sport, at some point you come to terms with the idea of, I guess, like retirement from elite sport. Even if you continue to play your sport afterwards, there's some point where you're not going to be able to compete at that level, at the lead level, whatever that level is, right?
There's always pickleball or boxing for that matter,
Sure.
but
So
that's why they make pickleball.
exactly. I think there's a difference with Parkinson's, though. I feel as though I'm being forced to make this decision by coming to terms with the reality because I can't do it anymore, not because I don't want to.
Right. Well, at least you still have the drive to want to do it. I mean, that says a
Yeah.
lot because we talked about apathy a lot and
Hmm.
how that takes away the will to actually even pursue the goal.
Yeah. There is a little bit, I've experienced a little more of that than I ever have in the last year, but it is, yeah, that is a part of it too. I'm sure this happens in NFL, NBA, hockey, MLB, golf, whatever, with people who have like a catastrophic injury who would love to still be able to play, but you know, they got nailed and they blew their knee out and they're never the same, you know? So,
Yeah.
and they're forced to retire. Cause yeah, I guess like that's maybe what I'm equating it with. Like,
As opposed to walking away from the game, and some few, but not a lot of guys have just walked away when they were at their peak,
yeah,
and probably the two that come to mind more than any others is Jim Brown and Barry Sanders,
yeah,
that walked away from their careers when they were at their peak instead of theoretically they would have returned to normal human levels as opposed to superstars
yeah, exactly.
and Hall of Famers.
That's a good point. It's rare that athletes get to retire on their own. Or like, I guess like a lot of times guys, their skills just like deteriorate such that like the writing's on the wall.
Right. And I think that's, has a lot to do with what we struggle with, or what people with Parkinson's struggle with, is it's kind of that decision's taken away from you. But as an athlete, there comes a time where you can't compete at that highest level, and that's kind of been taken away from you. Time took it away from you as opposed to a disease, but
Yeah.
the end result's still the same and the struggle's still the same.
So, okay, I can't really coach anymore because like Parkinson's kind of took that away from me. And probably training at the elite level is probably not practical anymore. Like I can't really do that. So it's like, what am I doing with myself then? It's kind of literally I can't even get a goddamn job at a freaking like this stupid sales job. So it's like, oh man, what am I doing with myself? So, but it's
Well,
okay. I guess I technically only sort of retired, I don't know, not too long ago. So I guess this is what me trying to give myself grace is like, I'm saying, think like, okay, this is a transition. Like this is a life transition. Like let myself go through this a little bit and be a little okay with that.
yeah, I think it's you have to find a certain degree of grace in figuring out another option. Maybe you have a great invention inside you, you just haven't given it time to germinate,
Yeah, exactly.
or solve this problem of an employment agency for people with Parkinson's.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So
The irony, I say tongue in cheek, but the irony of that is you probably have people who are grossly overqualified to do certain things that could still be valuable in the marketplace. And so, you would serve both needs. One, the sense of purpose that it gives you to have work and meaningful employment. And at the same time, someone to get that leadership and that ability at a below market cost.
yeah.
So I don't know, maybe we should start an employment agency.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, there's
Oh, it
necessity.
would solve our problem if we own the agency. It
Yeah,
solves our
exactly.
problems.
Yeah.
I'll have to mention that to Deborah at some point. I'm sure she'll get a kick out of it. If this episode helped, share it with a coach, an athlete, or someone who needs a little momentum.
And if you have a topic you want us to tackle, send it in. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for listening. Catch you on the next one.